Microsoft getting an upgrade this morning from Oppenheimer, upgrading the stock to an outperform $600 price target. The analyst says AI revenue will be a big driver for the company. The stock up just fractionally, up 0.8% pre-market.
All right, let's talk about mergers and acquisitions in the IPO market. What could drive deals in the second half of the year? Joining us now is Robert Kindler, Global Chair of the Mergers and Acquisitions Group at Paul Weiss. Good morning. It's been a while. It's great to have you here, especially in studio. We've heard a couple of conflicting things. One is that it's been really quiet and that, all of the excitement about the Trump administration and the tailwinds for M&A activity or even Justice Department type things would usher in a much better environment than we've seen recently. And then it looked like it didn't. But then we had people come in and say, yeah, in fact, that managers are saying, come back from, this was earlier, but come back from vacation. We're getting ready as of January 20th, which is true.
Well, I think, when you talk to M&A people, it's always a good time for M&A, no matter what.
It's like real estate people.
It doesn't matter. If the market's up, you do stock deals. The market's down, you do cash deals. But what really hurt M&A early this year was volatility. That was the issue in the market. It's very hard to do deals. And, you correctly made the call that people were overreacting to everything, right? You had these wild swings in S&P, and you said quite rightly, this doesn't make any sense. But the fact is, you can't do M&A deals when you have wild swings in value.
You mean the Liberation Day? You mean
all the things that caused wild swings in volatility. You just can't come to terms. And then you made the point, which is the question, that everyone expected antitrust to be easier, right, under the new administration. And I think people were waiting to see whether that is true. And I think we now know it is true. The last administration was really impossible to get anything done. They were resurrecting theories of antitrust that were long ago dispelled.
Why do you think? Why?
I think you had an academic running it, and you had a administration that at least felt that it needed to stop deals. Now, if you look at the first Trump administration, or even now, it's a much more pragmatic view. It's not that they're not populist in wanting to protect people, but it's just a pragmatic view. So if you look at the first administration, they approved the T-Mobile deal with Sprint, something that was rejected before, because they took the view that that was good for consumers. And you know what? They were right. Having a third competitor was really important. So in the prior administration, you saw a very practical view. And I think now that the market is kind of stabilized from a volatility perspective, now we see that this administration really is much more practical. Just to give some examples, the prior administration wouldn't enter into consent decrees to help solve the problems, right? This administration, they approved the Hewlett-Packard deal for Juniper, and they agreed that there'd be some divestitures. They're willing to negotiate to do the right things to get deals done. Look also at the U.S. Steel, which, longtime client of mine when I was at Morgan Stanley and J.P. Morgan. That deal made perfect sense, and yet it was blocked for political reasons last time. So I think now that people see that there's less volatility and more practicality in the market, I think we're going to see a lot more of it.
It's hard to understand, but I can figure it out. It was almost the notion that bigger is just going to be worse for consumers, and bigger in terms of big corporations. I mean, every time President Biden spoke, I was always struck with almost an animosity towards corporate. I'm from Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. I mean, it's a given. But from the chief executive of the country, I was hearing the same kind of anti-corporate, just almost in every single State of the Union or campaign speech. I understand that's populism, but I think it seeped into antitrust almost.
Oh, it was impossible. And now you have an administration that is definitely populist. They want to do the right thing for consumers. They don't want prices to go up, but they're being pragmatic.
Pragmatic populist.
And also just I point out that it's not that getting deals is going to be easy to get deals done. In Europe, it's very, very challenging. In the U.S., it's going to continue. People are going to look closely at deals. When I first went into banking, which was 25 years ago, the first call was always to the bankers. Let's see if we can put this deal together. Now the first call is to the lawyers, because the first question is, can we get this done? Not just in the U.S., but can we get it done in Europe, which really hasn't changed. So it's not that we're not going to get reviews. It's not that it's not going to take a long time. It's just that now we're dealing with someone who's being rational.